Coming up on Dirt Church, I throw rocks off a trail, I give water to my dog Jasmine, and I show you how to carry the Knolly Chilcotin around a feature if you're too chicken to give it a go. Hey, before we get into the review here, I do my best while riding to talk about things like geometry and handling, pedaling and climbing, and how the bike handles jumps and drops. But I didn't quite cover everything while I was riding the bike. So definitely stick around to the end, and I'm going to go over some pros and cons of the Knolly Chilcotin. I'm also going to talk a little bit about what some other reviewers have said about this bike. And finally, I'm going to unravel this mystery of the crazy brake sound that I was having in the first few rides of this bike. What's up? Ooh. Welcome to the butt crack of dawn. Hello everybody. Welcome to Dirt Church MTB. This is my first rides video with the Knolly Chilcotin, the 2024 Knolly Chilcotin in this wonderful, beautiful blue color. So this is a first rides video and not a first ride video, mostly because I'm still really getting the feel of this. And I didn't feel one ride was enough to truly give it justice. It's so much different from my last bike, my Pivot Mach 6, that I wanted to get a few rides in to properly suss everything out. Not only that, but my arm is still not 100%. I broke it and had surgery about 4 months ago, and I'm just getting back into riding, so I'm not hitting anything too hard. So my goal is, with a handful of rides over these weeks, I should give you a proper introduction to what is the Knolly Chilcotin, and is this the right bike for you? I should add that this is not a normal 2024 medium Knolly Chilcotin, but I made a mullet out of this in the high geometry position, and I have a 650B wheel on the back, and that does change things. Also, this has RockShox suspension. I have a Zeb up front, and I have a Vivid Air out back. It's really windy today, so if you notice a lot of cut takes, it's because I'm stopping to wait for the wind. And also to catch my breath, because I'm not quite in shape yet, so thanks. Also, this bike is blue, which, if I haven't already mentioned, makes it perform 17.5% better than if it was colored like a tomato. I made a mullet. That is a good looking bike. Can't get too relaxed. So today specifically, I wanted to talk to you about wheel flop, or the angle of the dangle. This bike's head angle is probably around 63.25 degrees. When set up as a mullet, which is slack. That's probably going to be really good when it's really steep and really fast. And then the question is, how about when it's not? You know, how about when it's kind of flat, kind of mellow? Like this. And it's blue. I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but it's blue. Right, Jazz? Blue is better. Amazing. Yeah, just holding that turn and picking a line even though it was loose. I love it. Cool, bright. Just drive loose. Can't see a thing. See, that is not good. Something is going on with my front brakes where it's like, there's like, I see this burr. Like,
oh yeah, look at that.
So I don't know what to do about this. I don't know. It sounds terrible. It feels awful, but I think I just have to finish the ride, because worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to kill this rotor, or I'm going to kill the pads. Yeah. And that's $70. Whatever. All right. So sounds awful. It's going to feel terrible. hopefully I can still ride. Ride and get a sense of how awesome the bike is. I mean, that's the whole woohoo. Well, back to the bike and try to ignore my destroyed front brake. But these switchbacks, these like tight berm switchbacks feel amazing with the way this bike turns. And all I can compare it to is my last bike. But it's like the combination of the grippy 29er front end and the way it turns in. Super predictable, super grippy. Like I definitely feel I could take it with more speed, confidence, and control. If I didn't have that front brake thing or even my arm, like I'm still feeling pain in my arm. All right, I love this bit. Woo! So fun. Okay, getting whacked in the head with branches. Yeah. Yeah. I actually feel like I need more support in the rear. Like, I feel like I'm bogging into my travel. Even though I'm at like 28, 27% sag. I could add some compression. That might do it. Okay. Oh! Okay. So I feel like I solved the brake bedding problem. Like the brakes actually have power now. But that burr in the front is brutal. And I don't know what caused it. So I'm gonna have to take it to the bike shop. See, look at that little switchback berm there. Super dry and loose. And then I could have taken it faster. You know, I could have. It felt really comfortable just to lean in, lean the bike. No issues. Well, if I just drag my front brake, then you can't hear it. Front line. But that makes for a boring ride. Man. The turns feel so good. Like, I'm not hitting them super fast because they're really dry and loose right now. But just the way the bike leans into it and feels intuitive, natural, confident. You know, it feels like it's holding a line nice and stable. It's everything you really want for taking turns at kind of slower, flatter trail biking. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Pedal to the rocks. Chink, ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. Whee! Man, the line this thing holds. Oh, yes! Okay. Love this bike. I'll just pretend that every time it ka-chings, I'm like winning the lottery. Whee! So rich right now. Gah! I'm trying my best to not be distracted by my poor brakes as they whimper away, but no concerns about wheel flop on the trail. No concerns about how slack the bike is on more mellow terrain or climbing. I should have worn my winter gloves. That is a beautiful looking bike. I love it. So I put my bike at like a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10 as far as setup and feeling dialed. Finally got the brakes figured out. That was a mess. I'd give my arm like a 6 or a 7 out of 10 for where it's at on the recovery journey. And I'd put my cardio at like a 3. It's a solid 3. Feeling pretty rough right now. The geometry is very different from my last bike, and so there's a lot to get used to, especially since I have it set up in the mullet configuration. It makes it extra slack, extra low. So figuring out the feeling of riding the bike is something I'm still getting used to. Set up in the mullet, it's not super intuitive. I think I would probably have clicked a little bit faster with it with the 29er rear wheel, which I plan to try sometime soon. But I really want to wrap my head around this mullet setup. The low bottom bracket feels amazing in berms. The bike feels great coming in low and squaring up in berms, and it just kind of wants to do that with every corner. So that low bottom bracket feels really good there. It's like wet, dry. So weird. Let's see if we can find some flow here. Relax. Have fun. So loose. Definitely need to get used to this front end. And the balance on this thing. I can feel it's going to be really good, but it's going to take time. Oh, bridge. Oh. Tell you, these are some foot out, flat out corners. Except for not flat out. Just foot out. Ooh. I feel like it rewards pushing into the front end. I just can't commit to that where it's loose. Ooh. Ooh, pedal clip. All right, now that that's out of the way, I really like the Chilcotin. Every ride reveals something new. Like, it's very layered, it's a very nuanced bike. It doesn't feel simple, it's complicated. Not complicated in a way that makes it hard to reach, but complicated in a way that there's layers and there's always more to it. So it's not something that you just figure out and then that's it. There's a lot going on with this bike. So I'm looking forward to many more rides. I'm looking forward to my cardio getting back and my arm getting strong again. Just riding more of the trails that I enjoy riding, with the jumps and drops and the gnarly techie stuff. And every ride gets me closer to that. Every ride gets me more in shape and gets my arm stronger. So here's to the future. Hey, I really appreciate you watching. If you haven't by now, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're not going to do it for me, at the very least, do it for Jasmine. She is here for the likes and subscribes. All right, everybody, welcome to ride number 5. I'm starting to feel a lot better on the bike, starting to feel like it's a lot more dialed. It's a journey though, nothing's happening quickly. You know, and at the end of it, I'm happy to be back riding. Oh, happy to have such a beautiful bike and happy for such well-built trails right in my backyard. It's a lot to be thankful for. Now let's go hit some jumps. That was way too deep. Well, I think that settles the huckability of this bike. On a few of those jumps I went about 10 feet too deep, landing mostly flat, and then a few of them I cased hard, almost to 50-50. And the bike just took it like a champ, soaked it up, felt amazingly solid. That was about pushing the limits of my arm though. I'm definitely done for today. We're getting stronger, 1 week at a time. Bike's feeling pretty dialed. Don't know what to rank it anymore, don't know what I have left. I mean, I'm more feeling out the geometry and how it's riding. My arm is still kind of 6 out of 10. Feeling better every week, but it's a slow journey and I can feel it on the rides. Right now I'm really feeling it on the pulling. So if I have to pull up into a manual or kind of wheelie, I can feel the strain on my elbow. And then my cardio is still in the gutter. 3 or 4 out of 10. Working on it, but it's suffering. All right, so let's talk pedaling and climbing. Really, it pedals good. The pedaling efficiency is neutral, planted, feels balanced. I'd say efficiency is pretty good. Again, my last bike was a Pivot Mach 6, and this is not that. You know, Pivot's platform feels snappy and super efficient. It almost felt rewarding on the Pivot to get up and sprint. I don't feel that on the Knolly. It feels rewarding to sit and pedal. I don't feel a lot of suspension movement because of pedaling forces. You know, that's not the feeling I get. I feel like the pedaling forces properly translate to forward movement while maintaining good tracking of the ground. Something that Knolly's marketing talks about a lot is traction and prioritizing rear wheel traction. I kind of get that from the feel, but I actually would describe it more as tracking. So rear wheel tracking, both under pedaling forces and when descending and going downhill, rear wheel tracking feels really, really good. It feels like that rear wheel can just move very freely, both while pedaling and climbing and when descending. So it makes for a very, very plush and planted's not quite the right word, but tracking is kind of the word I keep coming back to. You know, tracking is kind of the emphasis of this suspension platform. Loose. Very loose. Okay. Very loose. All right. Wow. Not the day I feel like guinea pigging something. Easy peasy. Low bottom bracket, no problem. So good. Oh. Just bunny hop it. So good. I know there's a better, faster line through there. Yoo-hoo! Wow. So maybe after that my arm's like a 4 out of 10, not a 6. So that's all the riding I'm gonna do for this first rides review. If you have any questions that I did not answer about the Knolly Chilcotin, hit me up in the comments. I'd be happy to talk more about what I think of the bike or how it is set up as a mullet, or really any of the components that I've been running. I know this is kind of a different build than what Knolly is selling from the shop. Hey, thanks for checking this video out. There's definitely more information coming. Take a brief second, hit the like button, and let's get back to riding. And as always, subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for coming along for the ride. Here are the pros of the 2024 Knolly Chilcotin setup and mullet. Number one, the kinematic is amazing. It is plush tracking and efficient pedaling. The combination of these two things is a home run on this bike. Number two, it has a solid frame build. The feeling when you ride down the trail, land off a big jump or drop, or slash through a berm feels laterally stiff and just bomb-proof. And pro number three, largely because of the kinematic and the solid frame build, the Knolly Chilcotin holds the line through rough terrain very well. It's something that I've already come to really appreciate about this bike. And now for the cons. Number one, this is not a great platform for pumping. So when you push into it with your feet, there's not a lot of pushback. The kinematic is really good for soaking up everything in the trail, but if you want to pump over rollers and push into the lip of the jump, this is probably not the bike for you. Number two, the bottom bracket feels too low when you're in a G-out in rough or rocky sections. Now, most of the time I did not mind the low bottom bracket of this bike, and granted it's only because it's set up in the mullet, but the time I really didn't like that low bottom bracket when I was either landing in a rock garden or going through a G-out in a rock garden and it was pushing the bottom of the bike deep into rocky terrain. And con number three, even though I liked how the Knolly Chilcotin pedals when you're seated or even standing through technical terrain, it did not have a great platform for sprinting. If you really want to feel energetic on the bike, this is not the bike for you. Okay, so on a Pink bike review, the reviewer talked about how the bike was way too progressive for an air shock, and that the reviewer only got along with it once he fitted a coil. I started with a Vivid Air and I went to 26 or 27% sag with extra compression just to avoid blowing through travel. And I'm now looking to add volume spacers. I'm in the higher Geo setting, which is supposed to be more linear, but I think if I had a coil shock, I would need to run around 25% sag. I am going to try adding some volume spacers to my Vivid Air, but really I definitely don't have a problem with this bike being too progressive. Pink Bike also commented that the 180mm rear rotor and Exo Plus tires have no place on this bike, and I wholeheartedly agree. This bike should have at least double down casing tires and a 200mm rotor on the back. I swapped these components out immediately, and I even went to a 220mm HS2 rotor in the front for additional braking power. NSMB reviewed the Chili 155 and said that it was more business than party in going around corners, but that was for the full 29er version. The mullet setup that I have with the lower bottom bracket and smaller rear wheel can definitely party through the corners. During the first few rides, I noticed a heinous scraping sound coming from my front brake after hard braking. The brakes would seem fine while in the parking lot or climbing, but after dropping in and braking hard, a rotational scraping sound would begin. Initially, I thought this was because I had not properly bedded my brakes, which was also true. But after rebedding my brakes and still hearing the sound, which again would only occur after hard braking, I discovered that burrs were appearing around the rim of the rotor, which indicated that the top of the rotor was rubbing on the inside of the caliper. This is when the light bulb came on for me, and I realized that I had fitted a 203mm Shimano rotor to the standard 200mm Zeb post mount setup. The 1.5mm difference was small enough that it provided clearance to spin while climbing, but as soon as the rotor heated up a bit under harder braking, it would expand and scrape against the underside of the caliper. All you need is the right size 1.5mm washers. I went to my friendly neighborhood bike shop and they hooked me up with a couple of washers that I installed easily, and the rotor was now able to spin and expand without scraping against the underside of the caliper. Problem solved. I bought this bike to ride more gravity-oriented trails, bike park shuttle, as well as trails that you have to pedal in order to access. I'm interested in a bike with strong gravity bias, but also one that won't make me feel like I'm pedaling through mud. The Chili mullet definitely meets this goal, and I'm happy to pedal it up the hill when the descent warrants it. Would I take this bike on a 30-mile, 5,000-foot ride? Sure, if the downhill trails justified an enduro type bike. Would I choose this bike for the BC bike race? Heck no. This bike would feel terrible for that. Would I use this bike for a 5 to 10 mile trail ride on mellower greens and blues? I could if this was my only bike, but but I'd probably get tired of it after the first few miles. The ups would feel a little sluggish and the downs would be boring. I'm really happy with how this bike pedals and climbs, for the purpose of climbing efficiently to the ultimate goal of descending gnarly trails. Of course, it's the blue that makes it ride better. It's the new technology that correctly activates the suspension, brakes, linkage, and drivetrain all at once. Blue bikes brought to you by the letter B, followed up with a brisk beer.